What happens when one of the most established names in the crypto ecosystem is showing a clear short-term decline, trading below recent highs, and facing weakening momentum? Is Cosmos ATOM becoming an undervalued opportunity, or is the current weakness a warning that the downtrend could continue? Today, we're taking a closer look at Cosmos, ticker ATOM, currently ranked around number 60, and the big question investors are asking right now: is ATOM preparing for a recovery, or are traders getting trapped by a cryptocurrency that simply looks cheaper than it used to? At the moment, ATOM is trading around $1.45, down roughly 1.9% over the last 24 hours. Its 24-hour trading volume is around $17.6 million, while the market capitalization is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The circulating supply is around 525 million atom, and unlike some cryptocurrencies with a fixed maximum supply, Cosmos does not have a hard maximum supply. That supply structure is important because long-term investors need to think about more than just the token price. Cosmos is one of the better-known projects in the blockchain industry, built around an ambitious idea: creating an ecosystem where independent blockchains can communicate and interact with each other. The Cosmos ecosystem is closely associated with the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, or IBC, which is designed to allow different blockchains to transfer data and assets between one another. In simple terms, Cosmos is trying to solve one of the biggest problems in blockchain: interoperability. Instead of having isolated blockchains operating like separate islands, the Cosmos vision is to create an interconnected ecosystem where different networks can communicate. That sounds powerful, but here's the problem: a strong technology narrative does not automatically create strong token demand, and that's exactly where the Atom debate becomes interesting. Before we go deeper, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, leave a comment. I want to know what you think about Atom right now. Is Cosmos undervalued at these levels, or is the market correctly pricing in the risks? Looking at the short-term chart, the first thing that stands out is the direction. Atom began the recent period around the $1.49 to $1.50 area, briefly pushed higher, and then experienced a noticeable decline. The price moved down through the $1.48 region, continued toward $1.47, and eventually reached the $1.45 area. There was a small recovery attempt afterward, but the overall structure remains weak. This is important because a recovery from a low doesn't automatically mean a trend reversal. For a genuine bullish reversal, traders generally want to see a sequence of higher lows followed by higher highs. Right now, that confirmation isn't there. The first support area to watch is around $1.45. That's where the recent selling pressure has found some buyers. If ATOM can hold this region and begin building a stronger base, that could give the bulls an opportunity to regain momentum. But if $1.45 breaks decisively, the next downside levels become increasingly important. The market could then start searching for another area where buyers are willing to step in. On the upside, the first important resistance zone is around $1.47 to $1.48. That's where the price previously found selling pressure during the decline. Above that, the $1.49 to $1.50 region becomes even more important because that's where the recent move began to lose strength. If ATOM can reclaim $1.50 with strong volume and actually hold above it, the short-term chart would start looking much healthier. But until that happens, rallies should be treated carefully. A temporary bounce inside a downtrend can look extremely bullish for a few hours, only to reverse again when sellers return. And that's where momentum becomes critical. The current short-term momentum is clearly weaker than it was at the beginning of the observed period. The price has been trending downward, and buyers have struggled to push ATOM back toward the previous highs. Trading volume is another factor to watch. A meaningful reversal generally becomes more convincing when increasing volume accompanies the move higher. If ATOM rises on weak volume and immediately gets rejected near resistance, that could simply be another failed recovery, But if buyers return with stronger volume and push through multiple resistance levels, that would provide a much stronger bullish signal. So, what about ratings and signals? With cryptocurrencies, there isn't a single Wall Street style analyst rating system that gives Atom an official universal buy, hold, or sell rating. Instead, traders usually look at technical momentum, market structure, volume, fundamentals, ecosystem activity, and broader market sentiment. Based on the current short term structure, the signal is cautious, the price is falling, momentum is weak, and the chart has not yet confirmed a reversal. That creates a short term bearish or defensive setup rather than a strong buy signal. But here's where things become complicated. Cosmos is not an unknown project, it has been one of the major names in blockchain interoperability for years. That means investors looking at Atom aren't simply betting on an anonymous token, they're betting on whether Cosmos can remain relevant in an increasingly competitive blockchain market. And that takes us directly into the biggest debate, undervalued or value trap. The bullish argument starts with the technology. Cosmos has a clear purpose in the blockchain ecosystem. Interoperability remains one of the industry's biggest challenges, and the ability for different networks to communicate and transfer assets could become increasingly important as the number of specialized blockchains grows. If the multi chain future becomes more important, Cosmos could potentially benefit. The ecosystem also has a significant history and established infrastructure. From that perspective, ATOM's current valuation could look attractive to investors who believe the market is underestimating the long-term importance of interoperability. But there's a major counter-argument. Atom itself has faced questions about how much value the broader Cosmos ecosystem creates specifically for the token. This is one of the most important issues investors need to understand. A blockchain ecosystem can grow without the native token necessarily capturing all of that value. That creates a difficult question. Even if Cosmos technology succeeds, does that automatically mean Atom must rise dramatically? Not necessarily. And that is where the value trap argument becomes stronger. Another challenge is competition. Cosmos isn't operating in an empty market. There are multiple blockchain ecosystems working on interoperability, scalability, cross chain communication, and specialized networks. The blockchain industry changes incredibly quickly. A technology that looks revolutionary today can face serious competition tomorrow. So, investors need to ask whether Cosmos can maintain its position while newer ecosystems continue attracting developers, liquidity, users, and capital. Now let's talk about the risks. The first major risk is continued downside momentum. If Atom loses the $1.45 support area and buyers fail to respond, the market could begin searching for significantly lower levels. The second risk is supply. Cosmos does not have a hard maximum supply, meaning investors need to consider the long-term implications of token issuance and inflation. Even if demand grows, increasing supply can create additional pressure if demand doesn't grow quickly enough. The third risk is competition. The interoperability sector is becoming increasingly crowded, and investors have many alternatives when deciding where to place capital. The fourth risk is market-wide volatility. Atom is still an altcoin. If Bitcoin experiences a major correction or the broader cryptocurrency market turns risk off, Atom could experience much stronger selling pressure than the current daily decline. And this is where retail traders often make the biggest mistake. They see ATOM around $1.45 and compare it with much higher prices from previous market cycles. Then they say, it used to be much higher, so it must eventually return there. But history doesn't guarantee the future. A previous price is not a target. The market needs a reason to revalue the asset. Now, let's look at the bull case. The best case scenario begins with ATOM defending the $1.45 region. If buyers continue stepping in around that level, the token could start forming a stronger base. The next step would be reclaiming $1.47 and $1.48. If ATOM breaks through that resistance with strong volume, the bulls could then challenge the $1.49 to $1.50 zone. A clean break above $1.50 would be much more significant because it would suggest that buyers are finally taking control of the short-term structure. From there, a larger recovery could become possible, especially if the overall crypto market is also moving higher. The bear case is much simpler. If ATOM continues making lower highs, fails to reclaim resistance, and eventually loses $1.45, sellers could remain firmly in control. That would suggest the recent bounce was simply temporary. And if broader altcoin sentiment weakens at the same time, Atom could experience another wave of selling. The long-term question is even more important. Can Cosmos remain one of the major infrastructure layers for an increasingly interconnected blockchain economy? If the answer is yes, today's price could eventually look extremely different. But if competing ecosystems capture most of the developer activity, liquidity, and cross-chain demand, ATOM could continue struggling to attract the valuation that long-term bulls expect. So where does that leave us? In the short term, ATOM remains a cautious setup. The $1.45 area is important support. The $1.47 to $1.48 region is important resistance. And the $1.49 to $1.50 zone could become the key confirmation area for a stronger recovery. Until ATOM starts reclaiming those levels, the bears have the advantage. But the long-term story shouldn't be ignored. Cosmos has a recognizable technology thesis, an established ecosystem, and a role in one of blockchain's biggest challenges, interoperability. The question is whether that technology can translate into sustained value for ATOM holders. So is ATOM undervalued at around $1.45? Or is the low price simply reflecting the market's concerns about competition, supply, and token value capture? The chart currently favors caution, but crypto markets can change direction extremely quickly. If buyers defend support and ATOM suddenly breaks through resistance with serious volume, today's bearish setup could become yesterday's story. On the other hand, if $1.45 fails and sellers regain control, this apparent bargain could become even cheaper. And that's the uncertainty investors need to watch. Is Cosmos Atom quietly building a bottom before its next major recovery, or is the market preparing for another leg lower? Let me know what you think in the comments. And remember, this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research, understand your own risk tolerance, and never invest money you cannot afford to lose.